Climbing Mount Everest has always been seen as the ultimate test for humans. Weeks of acclimatizing, nights in freezing tents, and step after painful step through the death zone. But not everyone is willing to follow the old path. In the last few years, a new kind of climber has appeared. One that bends, skips, and sometimes flat out breaks the rules just to get to the top faster, cheaper, or in a more spectacular way. Their stories are wild, controversial, and honestly fascinating. So let me take you through them one by one. 1. Our first story takes us to May 2023, high up on Everest at Camp 2, almost 6,000 meters above sea level. Up here, most climbers are just trying to survive. One man, Darren Verlogen from the US, had something entirely different planned. Instead of sitting in a tent to rest, Darren unpacked a paraglider. Yes, a paraglider leapt off into the thin air, above glaciers and the deadly Khumbu icefall. It was daring, dramatic, and completely illegal. You see, Nepal has strict aviation rules around Everest. Any form of flying in the region requires a special permit, and Darren didn't have one. So what he did wasn't just a stunt, it was a violation of airspace law and was blacklisted from future expeditions. If Darren's leap shocked people, this next story is pure legend and 100% real. 2. In 2011, two young Nepali men, Sano Babu Sunawar and Lakpat Sheri Sherpa, decided Everest summit was just the beginning. Their plan? Paraglide off the top of the world, then kayak nearly 500 miles to the Indian Ocean. They had no big sponsors, barely any gear, and opposite skill sets. Babu was a kayaker and paraglider who had never climbed Everest, while Lakpa was an Everest guide who couldn't swim. In just 42 minutes, they glided to Namche. Their epic feat earned them National Geographic's 2012 People's Choice Adventurers of the Year. Not for fame or money, but for living their dream and turning Everest into the starting point of one of the greatest adventures ever. Not all legendary climbs are about stunts or extreme adventures. Some are about pushing human limits in the face of rules and controversy. Three, take Lydia Brady, for example. In October 1988, she became the first woman to summit Mount Everest solo without supplemental oxygen, a feat that would have secured her a permanent place in mountaineering history. But there was a complication. She and her team had climbed an unauthorized route, breaking the agreement they had with the Nepalese authorities. Her climbing partners, who didn't reach the summit themselves, publicly denied her ascent to avoid penalties. Nepal even threatened her with a 10-year ban from Everest. Despite the backlash from parts of the climbing community, Lydia went on to continue her mountaineering career, guiding expeditions and summiting Everest multiple times legally.
I turned around and went down, but I didn't know if I had enough to link it all up to go to the summit, turn around, come back down from the summit, because that's where the most technical climbing is. And a little point of difference, I have to say, is there were no figures.
4. In May 2018, climbers Willie Benegas and Matt Moniz made headlines by skiing 2,400 feet down the Lhotse face from Camp 3 to Camp 2. a dream they'd had for years. The problem? They only had climbing permits, not the special ski permit Nepal requires, which includes a $1,000 fee, a garbage deposit, and a liaison officer to monitor the descent. When Benegas posted the video online, Nepal's Department of Tourism opened an investigation, even considering canceling their Everest and Lhotse permits and fining their expedition agency. But the climbing community rallied behind them, gathering over 150 signatures asking for leniency. The government eventually called it an innocent mistake, issued a small fine, about $461, and allowed them to continue their climbs. By 2023, Everest wasn't just a mountain, it had become a stage for some of the wildest scandals in mountaineering. Take the case of Elite Exped, the guiding company co-founded by celebrity climber Nirmal Nims Purya. They were accused of pulling off an illegal move by using permits for a smaller peak, Lingtran, while allegedly leading a team to the summit of Everest itself. If true, it meant bypassing Everest's expensive permit system. Nims denied the allegations, but questions lingered. Why were climbers with Lingtran permits spotted at Everest Base Camp? And where was the official Everest summit documentation? Nepal's tourism ministry opened an investigation, but many suspect internal pressure kept the scandal quiet. 6. Then came a case that went from online sleuthing to international headlines. In 2016, Indian climber Narendra Singh Yadav proudly claimed he had summited Everest, even posting photos that won him awards back home. But the internet noticed something odd. His summit flag looked fake. Investigators later confirmed the photos were doctored. Narendra's summit certificate was revoked. He was banned from climbing in Nepal for 6 years, and his reputation was destroyed. But in 2022, Narendra came back, this time with GPS tracking, verified photos, and a successful real summit. He finally earned the title he once faked. But the scandal raised a bigger question. How many other fake summits had gone unnoticed? Everest is known for testing endurance, but sometimes the mountain also exposes the tension between ambition and bureaucracy. 7. If you think money and permits cause tension on Everest, wait until you hear about Ueli Steck in 2013. The Swiss alpinist preparing for an Everest expedition found himself in one of the most terrifying situations of his career. Steck, along with Italian climbers Simone Moro and British photographer Jonathan Griffith, was ascending the Lhotse face to acclimatize. But there was a problem. A team of Sherpas was already busy fixing ropes on the route, essential for other climbers' safety. Steck and his team thought it would be fine to go ahead since they wouldn't be using the ropes. But the Sherpas saw it as disrespectful and dangerous. Arguments erupted, tempers flared, and the situation quickly escalated into a violent confrontation. Despite the severity of the incident, no formal bans or fines were imposed on the climbers. The Nepalese Tourism Ministry described the attack as a misunderstanding that had been resolved.
I'm sorry. Yes.
Things I never thought I would ever see in my whole entire life were happening in front of me. The Sherpa, in my interactions with them, they're not confrontational, they don't like...
Now, not every Everest story is about daring feats or extreme stunts. Some are about ambition gone too far. 8. In 2016, an Indian couple, Dinesh and Tarakeshwari Rathod, claimed they had conquered Mount Everest. They shared summit photos online, and at first, it seemed like a proud moment of achievement. But mountaineering experts quickly noticed something was off. The backgrounds didn't match known summit landmarks, and the positioning in the photos seemed suspicious. Further investigations confirmed that they had never actually reached the summit. The images were digitally altered to fake their accomplishment. The consequences were severe. Nepalese authorities slapped a 10-year climbing ban on both of them, barring any future expeditions in Nepal, including Everest. And there you have it, a glimpse into the wild, risky, and sometimes controversial world of Everest climbers. In May 2001, French snowboarder Marco Siffredi became the first person to descend Mount Everest on a snowboard, making history. But in September 2002, he returned, determined to ride the more dangerous Hornbein Couloir, Everest's holy grail of snowboarding. This time he climbed without permits and conditions were deteriorating. Despite warnings from Sherpas, Marco began his descent late in the day. As a storm rolled in, the Sherpas lost sight of him. They later saw what they thought was a figure but found no tracks, only deep snow and silence. Marco Siffredi was never seen again. His body and snowboard remain lost on Everest, and his final ride became one of the mountain's most haunting disappearances. These stories serve as a powerful reminder that ethics and credibility are just as important as skill and endurance. Chasing fame or recognition can tempt some climbers into dangerous shortcuts, but at the end of the day, Everest always sees through every lie. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more incredible adventure stories, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. Comment down below which Everest story shocked you the most. Harder than a yak pulling supplies up the Khumbu icefall. Let's start with one of the most infamous cases of mountaineering Photoshop gone wrong. Dinesh and Tarakeshwari Rathod. So here's the setup. Back in 2016, this married couple from India, both police officers by the way, announced they had successfully summited Everest. They proudly showed off their summit photos, the Indian flag in hand, smiling at the top of the world. For a hot minute, they were national heroes. Their department even praised them as the first Indian couple to conquer Everest. But climbers online noticed something off. You know how sometimes you see a badly edited profile picture and the ears are blurred, or the arm is floating at a weird angle? Yeah, same vibe. Their oxygen masks had magically switched colors between frames. Their gloves were different. The logos on their jackets literally shifted, like they'd been swapped out with copy-paste tools. People started zooming in, circling things, posting side-by-side comparisons. It was basically a Reddit detective's dream case. Turns out the Rathods hadn't been anywhere near the summit. They'd taken someone else's legit photo and just patched themselves in like they were updating a Facebook cover image. And the worst part? The original picture belonged to an actual climber, Satyarup Siddhanta, who was very much alive and very much annoyed that his summit moment had been stolen. Imagine grinding for months, risking your life, and then suddenly seeing your face swapped out of your own victory photo. The fallout, brutal. Nepal's government banned the Rathods from climbing in Nepal for 10 years. The international climbing community roasted them endlessly. Their careers as adventurers went up in smoke faster than a faulty camp stove. And honestly, in the era of reverse image search, thinking you can just swipe someone else's Everest pic and not get caught? That's the true height of delusion. Narendra Singh Yadav. Now, if the Rathods were Photoshop amateurs, Narendra Singh Yadav took Everest fakery to the bureaucratic level. This guy was an Indian climber who claimed to have summited Everest in 2016. At first, his story seemed solid. He had photos, he had paperwork, and he even managed to land a prestigious national award, the Tenzing Norgay Adventure Award, basically India's top honor for mountaineering. But once again, the photos didn't hold up. Sharp-eyed climbers spotted inconsistencies, oxygen masks looked suspiciously unused, weather conditions didn't match, and his summit selfies looked like they were taken far lower on the mountain. You know that one friend who brags about going to the gym but only ever posts mirror selfies in the locker room? Same energy. Things snowballed quickly. Investigators in Nepal dug into the details, and in 2021, Nepal's tourism ministry officially declared his 2016 summit claim false. That meant the paperwork was fake, the recognition was fake, and the honor was based on smoke and mirrors. Nepal slapped Yadav with a 6-year climbing ban, while India withdrew his award, going from national hero to national embarrassment in a single press release. That's a fall even steeper than Everest's Lhotse face. But here's the twist in his story. After serving his ban, Narendra came back to the mountain. In 2021, he actually climbed Everest for real. This time, there was no faking. He submitted legitimately. Photos and witnesses confirmed. Which means, in a weird way, he went from a fraud to finally earning the title he once lied about. It's almost Shakespearean. The guy who pretended to be a king eventually actually became one. Still, the stain of that fake attempt never really washed off. Ask anyone in the climbing community about him, and they'll always bring up the scandal first. That's the price of lying at 29,000 feet. You can reach the top later, but your reputation's still stuck in base camp. Marco Confortola. This one's fresh. Marco Confortola, an Italian climber who was once celebrated as a respected alpinist, suddenly found himself accused of faking not just Everest, but multiple Himalayan summits. The evidence? His own summit selfies. Now, mountaineers love their summit selfies. You're exhausted, you can barely breathe, but somehow you whip out your camera to capture that "I made it" moment. The problem is, Marco's selfies started raising eyebrows. They didn't just look suspicious, they looked suspiciously recycled. Same clouds, same angle, same suspicious lighting. People began comparing them frame by frame and realizing, wait a second, these photos don't line up with reality. Climbers and photo analysts dug deeper, and accusations surfaced that Marco had doctored multiple images to prove he'd reached the tops of 8,000-meter peaks, including Everest. Imagine working your way up a mountain with a backpack full of oxygen, ropes, food, and Marco's carrying Adobe Photoshop. And this wasn't some random weekend hiker. Marco had a career, sponsors, speaking gigs, credibility. He wasn't just a guy with an Instagram to flex on. He was a figure in the mountaineering community, which made the accusations sting even more. The controversy blew up in 2025, and the climbing world lost its collective mind. Some defended him, saying the accusations were exaggerated. Others flat out said, nope, he cheated, end of story. Either way, once the suspicion is out there, it sticks. Everest is unforgiving like that. You can recover from frostbite, but a faked photo? That scar never heals. Dale Abenojar. Now, let's rewind a bit and head to the Philippines. Dale Abenojar claimed in 2006 that he was the first Filipino to stand on the summit of Everest. Huge news. Countries love having the first of something, especially when it comes to a global symbol like Everest. Dale went home to a hero's welcome. He was even included in Guinness World Records as the first Filipino summiteer. Cue the flag waving, media attention, and champagne. But here's where things started cracking. Other climbers, journalists, and officials dug into his claim and found not a lot of evidence. Dale had climbed, sure, but whether he actually reached the top, that was another story. His summit certificate wasn't from Nepal's Department of Tourism, the official source. but from a trekking agency. His timing didn't match the logs of other climbers, and no one credible could confirm actually seeing him on the summit. Another Filipino climber, Leo Oracion, had summited just days earlier with clear documentation, and his achievement was widely accepted. Suddenly, it looked like Dale was trying to snatch the title by slipping in a less documented claim. Critics argued that Dale's story didn't add up. Everest isn't the kind of place where you can just sneak past unnoticed. There are fixed ropes, queues of climbers, Sherpas, expedition logs. If you were at the top, someone else should have seen you. Instead, Dale's proof was shaky at best. To this day, his claim is disputed. Some Filipinos still back him, insisting he deserves recognition. Others roll their eyes and credit a Russian instead. Either way, Dale's story shows how powerful national pride can be. Sometimes so powerful that "did he really make it?" gets brushed under the rug. And honestly, imagine claiming Everest in 2006, before social media was everywhere. If you faked it back then, you at least had a fighting chance. These days, the internet will zoom, crop, reverse image search, and tear apart your metadata before you even finish posting. Dale had the misfortune, or the luck, depending how you see it, of doing it at the tail end of the pre-social media era, which is probably why his disputed claim still floats around like a stubborn cloud on the summit. So between Marco and Dale, we've got two very different flavors of fakery. Marco's is the high-tech, repeat offender kind, possibly doctoring multiple climbs with suspicious photos. Dale's is more of a paperwork and pride kind, claiming the first title for a nation without the receipts to back it up. Both cases remind us that on Everest, getting up there isn't just about reaching the summit. It's about proving it beyond a shadow of a doubt. Because climbing Everest might make you legendary for a moment, but faking Everest, that makes you infamous forever. 1960 Chinese expedition, Wang Fuzhou, Kuyinhua, Liu Lianman. Let's set the scene. It's 1960, and China announces to the world that a team of climbers has successfully summited Everest from the treacherous north side. Now, up until then, the north side had a reputation for being nearly impossible. The British had tried it in the 1920s and failed. For decades, climbers believed the route was basically unclimbable. So when China declared victory, it wasn't just a mountaineering milestone, it was a propaganda goldmine. They claimed Wang Fuzhou, Kuyinhua, and Liu Lianman reached the top on May 25, 1960. Cue the triumphant headlines. China had done what the world thought couldn't be done, but almost immediately, doubts crept in. The team provided no summit photo, none. They said their camera froze near the top, which sure sounds plausible. It's Everest after all. But at the same time, our camera broke is the mountaineering equivalent of "my dog ate my homework." Skeptics also raised questions about the timing of their climb, the route they claimed to have taken, and the lack of reliable witnesses. Most controversially, they described climbing the infamous second step, a near vertical rock face at around 8,600 meters, without ladders or modern gear. One climber, Liu Lianman, supposedly served as a human ladder, letting the others step on his shoulders to scale the obstacle. Heroic? Yes. Believable? Mountaineers have been arguing about that for 60 years. For decades, Western climbing circles dismissed the claim as political theater. They believed the Chinese government had manufactured a heroic victory for morale during a turbulent time. And with no photo proof, the story stayed stuck in limbo. But then, fast forward to 1975. Another Chinese team reached the summit, this time with photos, and they confirmed that the 1960 team had indeed left a small bust of Mao Zedong on top. That suggested maybe, just maybe, the earlier climb was real after all. Since then, many Chinese mountaineers insist the 1960 ascent was genuine. Western historians? still split. Some accept it, others say the logistics just don't add up. Either way, the 1960 Chinese expedition remains one of Everest's most hotly debated did they or didn't they stories. Unlike the Rathods or Narendra Yadav, it wasn't just about personal bragging rights. It was about national prestige, which in some ways makes it the most fascinating Everest controversy of them all. So what do these stories really show? From the Rathods' Photoshop tricks to Narendra Yadav's tainted comeback, Marco Confortola's recycled selfies, Dale Abenojar's disputed first, and China's Cold War climb, it's clear Everest isn't just a mountain, it's a stage. On that stage, the line between glory and scandal is paper thin. You can fake a photo, forge paperwork, or spin a tale for years, but the truth always melts out of the ice. Because Everest doesn't care about egos. It just stands there indifferent while reputations rise and collapse. And if you fake it, maybe you'll snag a headline, but you'll never outrun the campfire jokes at base camp. So what do you think? Who pulled off the most ridiculous Everest fakery? Was it the Rathods with their copy-paste summit dreams, Narendra's National Award debacle, Marco's Photoshop drama, Dale's disputed first, or China's Cold War climb? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let's settle which fake summit deserves the crown of shame. And hey, if you enjoyed this dive into the wildest side of mountaineering, make sure to stick around for more stories that prove sometimes the biggest avalanches come from human pride, not snow. But it takes an even stranger kind of person to not actually do it, then go around bragging like they did. Everest isn't just about climbing, it's about credibility. And once you fake it, trust me, the mountain community will drag you harder than a yak pulling supplies up the Khumbu icefall. Let's start with one of the most infamous cases of mountaineering Photoshop gone wrong. Dinesh and Tarakeshwari Rathod. So here's the setup. Back in 2016, this married couple from India, both police officers by the way, announced they had successfully summited Everest. They proudly showed off their summit photos, the Indian flag in hand, smiling at the top of the world. For a hot minute, they were national heroes. Their department even praised them as the first Indian couple to conquer Everest. But climbers online noticed something off. You know how sometimes you see a badly edited profile picture and the ears are blurred, or the arm is floating at a weird angle? Yeah, same vibe. Their oxygen masks had magically switched colors between frames. Their gloves were different. The logos on their jackets literally shifted, like they'd been swapped out with copy-paste tools. People started zooming in, circling things, posting side-by-side comparisons. It was basically a Reddit detective's dream case. Turns out the Rathods hadn't been anywhere near the summit. They'd taken someone else's legit photo and just patched themselves in like they were updating a Facebook cover image. And the worst part? The original picture belonged to an actual climber, Satyarup Siddhanta, who was very much alive and very much annoyed that his summit moment had been stolen. Imagine grinding for months, risking your life, and then suddenly seeing your face swapped out of your own victory photo. The fallout, brutal. Nepal's government banned the Rathods from climbing in Nepal for 10 years. The international climbing community roasted them endlessly. Their careers as adventurers went up in smoke faster than a faulty camp stove. And honestly, in the era of reverse image search, thinking you can just swipe someone else's Everest pic and not get caught? That's the true height of delusion. Narendra Singh Yadav. Now, if the Rathods were Photoshop amateurs, Narendra Singh Yadav took Everest fakery to the bureaucratic level. This guy was an Indian climber who claimed to have summited Everest in 2016. At first, his story seemed solid. He had photos, he had paperwork, and he even managed to land a prestigious national award, the Tenzing Norgay Adventure Award, basically India's top honor for mountaineering. But once again, the photos didn't hold up. Sharp-eyed climbers spotted inconsistencies, oxygen masks looked suspiciously unused, weather conditions didn't match, and his summit selfies looked like they were taken far lower on the mountain. You know that one friend who brags about going to the gym but only ever posts mirror selfies in the locker room? Same energy. Things snowballed quickly. Investigators in Nepal dug into the details, and in 2021, Nepal's tourism ministry officially declared his 2016 summit claim false. That meant the paperwork was fake, the recognition was fake, and the honor was based on smoke and mirrors. Nepal slapped Yadav with a 6-year climbing ban, while India withdrew his award, going from national hero to national embarrassment in a single press release. That's a fall even steeper than Everest's Lhotse face. But here's the twist in his story. After serving his ban, Narendra came back to the mountain. In 2021, he actually climbed Everest for real. This time, there was no faking. He submitted legitimately. Photos and witnesses confirmed. Which means, in a weird way, he went from a fraud to finally earning the title he once lied about. It's almost Shakespearean. The guy who pretended to be a king eventually actually became one. Still, the stain of that fake attempt never really washed off. Ask anyone in the climbing community about him, and they'll always bring up the scandal first. That's the price of lying at 29,000 feet. You can reach the top later, but your reputation's still stuck in base camp. Marco Confortola. This one's fresh. Marco Confortola, an Italian climber who was once celebrated as a respected alpinist, suddenly found himself accused of faking not just Everest, but multiple Himalayan summits. The evidence? His own summit selfies. Now, mountaineers love their summit selfies. You're exhausted, you can barely breathe, but somehow you whip out your camera to capture that "I made it" moment. The problem is, Marco's selfies started raising eyebrows. They didn't just look suspicious, they looked suspiciously recycled. Same clouds, same angle, same suspicious lighting. People began comparing them frame by frame and realizing, wait a second, these photos don't line up with reality. Climbers and photo analysts dug deeper, and accusations surfaced that Marco had doctored multiple images to prove he'd reached the tops of 8,000-meter peaks, including Everest. Imagine working your way up a mountain with a backpack full of oxygen, ropes, food, and Marco's carrying Adobe Photoshop. And this wasn't some random weekend hiker. Marco had a career, sponsors, speaking gigs, credibility. He wasn't just a guy with an Instagram to flex on. He was a figure in the mountaineering community, which made the accusations sting even more. The controversy blew up in 2025, and the climbing world lost its collective mind. Some defended him, saying the accusations were exaggerated. Others flat out said, nope, he cheated, end of story. Either way, once the suspicion is out there, it sticks. Everest is unforgiving like that. You can recover from frostbite, but a faked photo? That scar never heals. Dale Abenojar. Now, let's rewind a bit and head to the Philippines. Dale Abenojar claimed in 2006 that he was the first Filipino to stand on the summit of Everest. Huge news. Countries love having the first of something, especially when it comes to a global symbol like Everest. Dale went home to a hero's welcome. He was even included in Guinness World Records as the first Filipino summiteer. Cue the flag waving, media attention, and champagne. But here's where things started cracking. Other climbers, journalists, and officials dug into his claim and found not a lot of evidence. Dale had climbed, sure, but whether he actually reached the top, that was another story. His summit certificate wasn't from Nepal's Department of Tourism, the official source. but from a trekking agency. His timing didn't match the logs of other climbers, and no one credible could confirm actually seeing him on the summit. Another Filipino climber, Leo Oracion, had summited just days earlier with clear documentation, and his achievement was widely accepted. Suddenly, it looked like Dale was trying to snatch the title by slipping in a less documented claim. Critics argued that Dale's story didn't add up. Everest isn't the kind of place where you can just sneak past unnoticed. There are fixed ropes, queues of climbers, Sherpas, expedition logs. If you were at the top, someone else should have seen you. Instead, Dale's proof was shaky at best. To this day, his claim is disputed. Some Filipinos still back him, insisting he deserves recognition. Others roll their eyes and credit a Russian instead. Either way, Dale's story shows how powerful national pride can be, sometimes so powerful that "did he really make it?" gets brushed under the rug. And honestly, imagine claiming Everest in 2006, before social media was everywhere. If you faked it back then, you at least had a fighting chance. These days, the internet will zoom, crop, reverse image search, and tear apart your metadata before you even finish posting. Dale had the misfortune, or the luck, depending how you see it, of doing it at the tail end of the pre-social media era, which is probably why his disputed claim still floats around like a stubborn cloud on the summit. So between Marco and Dale, we've got two very different flavors of fakery. Marco's is the high-tech, repeat offender kind, possibly doctoring multiple climbs with suspicious photos. Dale's is more of a paperwork and pride kind, claiming the first title for a nation without the receipts to back it up. Both cases remind us that on Everest, getting up there isn't just about reaching the summit. It's about proving it beyond a shadow of a doubt. Because climbing Everest might make you legendary for a moment, but faking Everest, that makes you infamous forever. 1960 Chinese expedition, Wang Fuzhou, Kuyinhua, Liu Lianman. Let's set the scene. It's 1960, and China announces to the world that a team of climbers has successfully summited Everest from the treacherous north side. Now, up until then, the north side had a reputation for being nearly impossible. The British had tried it in the 1920s and failed. For decades, climbers believed the route was basically unclimbable. So when China declared victory, it wasn't just a mountaineering milestone, it was a propaganda goldmine. They claimed Wang Fuzhou, Ku Yinhua, and Liu Lianman reached the top on May 25, 1960. Cue the triumphant headlines. China had done what the world thought couldn't be done, but almost immediately, doubts crept in. The team provided no summit photo, none. They said their camera froze near the top, which sure sounds plausible. It's Everest after all. But at the same time, our camera broke is the mountaineering equivalent of my dog ate my homework. Skeptics also raised questions about the timing of their climb, the route they claimed to have taken, and the lack of reliable witnesses. Most controversially, they described climbing the infamous second step, a near vertical rock face at around 8,600 meters, without ladders or modern gear. One climber, Liu Lianman, supposedly served as a human ladder, letting the others step on his shoulders to scale the obstacle. Heroic? Yes. Believable? Mountaineers have been arguing about that for 60 years. For decades, Western climbing circles dismissed the claim as political theater. They believed the Chinese government had manufactured a heroic victory for morale during a turbulent time. And with no photo proof, the story stayed stuck in limbo. But then, fast forward to 1975. Another Chinese team reached the summit, this time with photos, and they confirmed that the 1960 team had indeed left a small bust of Mao Zedong on top. That suggested maybe, just maybe, the earlier climb was real after all. Since then, many Chinese mountaineers insist the 1960 ascent was genuine. Western historians? still split. Some accept it, others say the logistics just don't add up. Either way, the 1960 Chinese expedition remains one of Everest's most hotly debated "did they or didn't they" stories. Unlike the Rathods or Narendra Yadav, it wasn't just about personal bragging rights. It was about national prestige, which in some ways makes it the most fascinating Everest controversy of them all. So what do these stories really show? From the Rathods' Photoshop tricks to Narendra Yadav's tainted comeback, Marco Confortola's recycled selfies, Dale Abenojar's disputed first, and China's Cold War climb, it's clear Everest isn't just a mountain, it's a stage. On that stage, the line between glory and scandal is paper thin. You can fake a photo, forge paperwork, or spin a tale for years, but the truth always melts out of the ice. Because Everest doesn't care about egos. It just stands there indifferent, while reputations rise and collapse. And if you fake it, maybe you'll snag a headline, but you'll never outrun the campfire jokes at base camp. So what do you think? Who pulled off the most ridiculous Everest fakery? Was it the Rathods with their copy-paste summit dreams, Narendra's National Award debacle, Marco's Photoshop drama, Dale's disputed first, or China's Cold War climb? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let's settle which fake summit deserves the crown of shame. And hey, if you enjoyed this dive into the wildest side of mountaineering, make sure to stick around for more stories that prove sometimes the biggest avalanches come from human pride, not snow.
Lose your small summit window just because you got caught up behind somebody, so you gotta pass when you can.
The horrifying legend of Green Boots, Everest's frozen ghost. The horrible story of Green Boots, the famous frozen body on Everest, Mount Everest, the tallest place on Earth, a peak where dreams ascend and sometimes die. At 8,500 meters in the icy clutch of Everest's death zone lies a small rocky cave. Inside it once sat a body motionless, frostbitten, and unmistakable, thanks to a pair of neon green boots. For nearly 2 decades, this nameless figure was simply called Green Boots, becoming both a grim marker and a whispered warning. But Green Boots had a name, Tsewang Paljor, an Indian climber from the Indo-Tibetan Border Police. In May 1996, he joined a team bound for the summit. His mother pleaded with him not to go, sensing something. He went anyway. He believed reaching the top would bring honor to his family. Instead, it brought heartbreak. May 10th, a storm roared across the South Col, blizzards, whiteouts, wind screaming like a banshee across the slopes. The team splintered. Paljor and 2 others became trapped. He took shelter in a small cave in the cliffside, hoping to ride out the storm. But this wasn't a storm. It was Everest's fury unleashed. He had oxygen for a few hours. The blizzard lasted days. Paljor never came out. There, in the thin air, his body froze. Still seated, head bowed, hands wrapped around his knees. Other climbers, crawling past on their way to the summit, had to step over his legs. He became part of the mountain, a silent witness to others chasing glory. For years, his identity was debated. Accusations swirled about abandoned climbers, ignored cries for help, and failed rescues. But the mountain never answered. Only the wind knows what truly happened in that cave. In 2014, out of respect, his body was moved, but the legend remained. Green Boots became more than a man. He became a symbol of ambition, of risk, of Everest's ruthless toll. Climbing this mountain isn't just about strength, it's about judgment, respect, timing, and sometimes luck. Paljor's frozen vigil is a stark reminder. Everest doesn't care who you are. It offers no guarantees, only challenges and silence. And to those who dare climb, he stands eternal. Green Boots pressed into the snow, asking one final question. How far are you willing to go for the top? The Hillary Step, a vertical death trap in the sky. Just 300 vertical feet below the summit. That's where the nightmare revealed itself. Hillary and Tenzing had been climbing for hours, lungs burning, legs barely responding, oxygen tanks slowly draining. The wind up here was no longer just wind, it was a scream, howling between rock spires and snow ridges. Every breath came with effort, and then they saw it. A nearly vertical rock wall, 40 feet high, sheer, unforgiving. Later, it would be named the Hillary Step. But in that moment, it was simply a monstrous obstacle, sitting squarely between them and history. The altitude, a brutal 28,839 feet. The air, thin enough to make every movement feel like pushing through molasses. One wrong step here and it wouldn't be a fall, it would be a free fall down one of two sides, each dropping thousands of feet into oblivion. On one side lay the Kangshung face of Nepal, on the other the Tibetan plateau. Neither side offered forgiveness. There were no second chances. This was the moment when courage either broke or pushed through. Tenzing stood below, belaying Hillary as he examined the wall. There were no real handholds. The rock face was clean and smooth. The only possible route, a narrow crack between the rock and a hanging cornice of ice. Unstable, untested, and potentially deadly. But hesitation was a luxury they didn't have. So Hillary wedged himself into the crack, pressing his back to the rock, his boots against the ice, inching upward like a human wedge. Every movement was calculated. Every inch upward came with the risk that the cornice might collapse, taking him with it. Tenzing below watched, rope taut, breath shallow. If Hillary fell, Tenzing would have to hold the full weight of his partner, with only a few pitons and a prayer between them and the void. Time slowed. Minutes felt like hours. Hillary's fingers clawed upward. His knees ached. His breath came in desperate gasps. But then, at last, his hand reached the top. He hauled himself over, heart pounding, legs shaking, and secured the rope. Tenzing followed, carefully, steadily. When they finally stood together at the top of the step, they could see the summit. It was close now, and they'd just conquered what many considered the most dangerous technical obstacle on the mountain. The Hillary Step would go on to become infamous, challenging climbers for over 6 decades, until it was destroyed in the 2015 earthquake. But on that day in 1953, it was the final boss, a 40-foot wall guarding the roof of the world. Oxygen catastrophe, climbing while slowly dying. 3 days before Hillary and Tenzing's summit triumph, 2 other climbers, Tom Bourdillon and Charles Evans, had a shot at the top. Their job? Make a first attempt, open the route, and test a new kind of oxygen system. They started strong, but their equipment, that's where things took a dangerous turn. They were using experimental closed-circuit oxygen systems. These weren't like the simpler open systems Hillary and Tenzing used. Closed circuit was supposed to be more efficient, recycling exhaled air, scrubbing it of carbon dioxide, and returning oxygen. In theory, brilliant. In reality, complicated and fragile. Early into the climb, Evans noticed something was off. His breathing was getting harder. Turns out a valve in his system was damaged. Bourdillon, realizing the risk, took off his gloves. Yes, bare hands in sub-zero temps to try and fix it. While his blood began to freeze, he was fiddling with metal parts, building a makeshift repair that took over an hour. They pressed on. As they climbed toward the south summit, Evans' condition worsened. His breaths came 6 at a time per step. That's 6 gasps just to move 1 foot. Something was very wrong. Then came the chilling realization. The oxygen system wasn't delivering enough oxygen, and worse, It was allowing carbon dioxide to build up. The very air they were breathing was poisoning them. At 28,700 feet, they reached the south summit, the highest point any human had stood on Earth. But they couldn't go any further. Their bodies were shutting down. Bourdillon felt a wave of exhaustion so deep he described it as a near-death sensation. Every cell screamed for oxygen, and none was coming. They turned back. What followed was a nightmare descent. Slipping, stumbling, falling, barely able to coordinate movements, they navigated a vertical graveyard. Had they pushed on, they likely wouldn't have returned at all. It was a failure that saved their lives. And without their attempt clearing the path and identifying the oxygen failures, Hillary and Tenzing's climb might never have happened. They were the unsung heroes of the expedition. While history remembers the summit duo, it was Bourdillon and Evans who helped make the summit even possible. Their brutal climb exposed flaws in equipment that could have doomed the entire team. They mapped key parts of the route, discovered critical ice conditions, and offered valuable insight into oxygen use at extreme altitude. But what they endured was more than physical. It was a psychological battle, the crushing realization that the summit was within reach, yet forever out of grasp. Evans later recalled seeing the summit so close, yet feeling his body giving out like a dying engine. No matter how badly he wanted it, the mountain demanded more than he had left. Bourdillon, meanwhile, was physically strong, but burdened with the responsibility of protecting his partner. They were a team, and turning around wasn't a choice. It was survival. On the way down, the mountain threw more obstacles at them. Wind picked up. The slope grew slick with melting snow. Every step risked a fall. Every breath was a gamble with hypoxia. Bourdillon's hands, frostbitten from the earlier repair, began to stiffen. Evans' oxygen deprivation made it hard to concentrate, let alone navigate the ice fields. But they made it back. When they stumbled into the South Col camp, they weren't greeted with judgment. They were hailed for their grit and for their sacrifice, because they had given Hillary and Tenzing the cleanest shot possible. What they proved is something often overlooked. Courage doesn't always mean standing at the top. Sometimes it means knowing when to turn back. It means accepting limits, even in the face of greatness. And that makes their story not a failure, but a vital piece of mountaineering history. The Khumbu Icefall, nature's most lethal obstacle course. Before any dreams of summits or glory, there's one place every Everest climber must cross first, the Khumbu Icefall. And in 1953, it was pure chaos. The icefall isn't just dangerous, it's alive. A constantly shifting glacier filled with towering seracs, massive ice towers the size of apartment buildings. Some stand still for hours, others collapse without warning, and in between, hidden crevasses deep enough to swallow an entire team. To move through it is to gamble every step. For the British expedition, this wasn't a one-time crossing. They had to go through the icefall multiple times, ferrying supplies, building camps, and establishing the route. Each trip was a roll of the dice. At one point near Camp 2, they found themselves climbing over what Hillary described as a crazy pile of ice blocks of all shapes and sizes. The ground groaned beneath them. Deep rumbling echoed like thunder under their boots. It wasn't just disorienting, it was threatening to give way at any moment. Then came the hanging seracs, precarious towers of ice poised like swords over the route. At any time, they could fall and crush anyone below. The fear wasn't abstract. Climbers have died there. Many. Even up to 2016, at least 44 climbers have lost their lives in the icefall alone. Eventually, crevasses began opening under Camp 2 itself. Tents shifted, ropes snapped. The Sherpas, experienced, intuitive, and courageous, flat out refused to sleep there anymore. That wasn't fear, that was wisdom. The camp was abandoned, but the climb had to continue. There's no way around the icefall. It's Everest's toll gate. And in 1953, it was uncharted. Every ladder, every step, every placement was new and dangerous. But they pushed through it again and again, knowing one misstep, one unlucky shift of ice could end everything in an instant. The crevasse fall, Tenzing's split-second life-saving grab. Not all dangers on Everest come at 28,000 feet. Some arrive quietly, at lower altitudes, hidden, waiting. As darkness crept across the glacier, Hillary and Tenzing were navigating the lower icefall. Still dangerous, still unforgiving. They were trying to reach camp before the last light faded. Ahead of them, a familiar crevasse. They'd crossed it earlier using a large, solid chunk of ice, jammed between the edges, like a frozen stepping stone. Hillary went first, but this time, the ice gave way. It happened instantly. One moment he was leaping across. The next, the chunk of ice cracked, then dropped. Hillary followed straight into the abyss. This was it. But Tenzing reacted faster than thought. He didn't shout. He didn't hesitate. He jammed his ice axe deep into the snow and instinctively wrapped the rope around it, anchoring the line. Hillary's body jerked at the end of the rope. The sound, a sharp twang. The fall was stopped. Dangling in the cold, heart racing, Hillary was now suspended over the void. The ice chunk he'd relied on had shattered at the bottom of the crevasse. If Tenzing had been a second slower, it would have been over. Using his crampons and axe, Hillary chipped his way back up the wall. Step by step, he climbed out of the jaws of death. That moment, simple in seconds, epic in meaning, solidified their bond. It proved trust, it showed instinct, and it revealed exactly why Tenzing Norgay was the perfect man to stand on the summit with Hillary. The summit that nearly killed them. At 11:30 a.m. on May 29, 1953, Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay stood side by side on the roof of the world, 29,035 feet, wind swirling around them, the highest point on Earth. They stayed just 15 minutes, took photographs, buried small offerings, shared a moment of silence. Then they turned back. Because on Everest, getting up is only half the journey. Coming down, that's survival. And yet, they made it. News of the successful summit reached Britain on June 2nd, 1953, the same day as Queen Elizabeth II's coronation. The timing, perfect. The symbolism, unforgettable. But it wasn't just a story of success. It was a saga of fear, failure, rescue, and endurance. The 1953 British Everest expedition proved that humanity could push into the death zone and come back with legends. Though their time at the top was brief, it was etched into history. In that thin air above the clouds, they became symbols of courage. Their achievement wasn't just for themselves. It was for every climber who had perished before them and everyone who would dream of Everest after. The moment was quiet, solemn, almost spiritual. Hillary snapped a photo of Tenzing with his ice axe held high, but never asked for one of himself. Later, Tenzing revealed that Hillary had refused, saying it wasn't about glory, it was about the mountain. Before leaving, they buried a small cross, a chocolate bar, and offerings to the gods, symbols of both faith and gratitude. The descent was far from easy. The wind picked up. The snowfields looked different in the light of midday, and their oxygen supplies were running dangerously low. Every step down required focus, coordination, and the knowledge that even now, after the summit, death could still come with one misstep. Back at Camp 9, exhausted but alive, they were greeted with smiles, cheers, and relief. There was no time for celebrations, only rest. Word spread down the mountain through coded messages and radio relays. When the final confirmation reached London, it sent ripples across the world. In New Zealand, church bells rang. In India and Nepal, flags flew high for Tenzing. And in Britain, amid the coronation of a new queen, a story of triumph arrived like a gift from the gods. This expedition changed everything. It redefined what was possible. Everest was no longer invincible. It was human, but not conquered, because Everest, in truth, can never be conquered. It allows passage, and only when it chooses. Hillary and Tenzing never claimed to have defeated the mountain. They simply endured it, respected it, and returned. Their success wasn't fueled by ego, but partnership. Two men, one from the farms of New Zealand, the other from the slopes of the Himalayas, united by trust, discipline, and grit. Theirs was not just a summit, it was a lesson that the limits of the human body can be pushed when the heart is strong, that the death zone is survivable when the soul refuses to quit, that no obstacle, no matter how high, is beyond reach if climbed together. And that's what makes this story eternal. Not just that they reached the summit, but how they did it. With humility, with each other, and with the mountain's silent permission. The first successful Everest climb wasn't just a mountaineering achievement, it was a human epic. Frozen boots, broken oxygen systems, sheer cliffs, living glaciers, and deadly crevasses. These weren't just challenges. They were near-death experiences that demanded strength, trust, and unbreakable will. And somehow, through it all, they made it.
Come on, doggy! Dog, let's go! Hurry up!
The climb begins with air so thin that every breath feels stolen. Boots crunch into the frozen slope as wind roars like a living thing. The temperature cuts through fabric, slicing skin as if the mountain itself wants intruders gone. And then, through the veil of snow and exhaustion, a figure appears. A woman, sitting upright in the ice, her hair whipping in the wind, her eyes wide open. She looks alive, almost as though she might stand at any moment, but she hasn't moved for decades. This is the haunting truth of Mount Everest. It doesn't just kill, it keeps what it takes. The mountain turns bodies into warnings, preserving them in ice like exhibits in a terrible museum of broken dreams. And among the many who have perished on its slopes, 3 women stand out. Not just because of how they died, but because of what their deaths reveal about Everest itself. They were not reckless thrill seekers. They were climbers, dreamers, pioneers, each with her own reasons for attempting the ultimate ascent. They reached the top of the world. They should have returned as heroes. Instead, they became permanent markers in Everest's grim history. This is the story of Hannelore Schmatz, Shreya Shah Chlorfine, and Yasuko Namba. 3 women, 3 decades, 3 tragedies that show how Everest demands everything: skill, money, and even experience, and how sometimes even that isn't enough. Hannelore Schmatz, the German woman in the snow. Frozen to death on Everest, the tragic tale of Hannelore Schmatz. The year was 1979, a time when Everest wasn't overrun with climbers and glossy guiding companies. The mountain was raw, wild, and unforgiving. Reaching the summit wasn't about selfies or bragging rights. It was about survival, endurance, and a relentless test of human will. Hannelore Schmatz, a German climber with a fierce spirit, dreamed of making history. She wanted to become one of the first women ever to stand on the summit of Mount Everest. And unlike many who dreamed without preparation, Hannelore wasn't naive. She was an experienced mountaineer who had tackled peaks across Europe. Her resume was filled with tough climbs, and her resolve matched the rugged paths she had conquered. When her expedition set out, spirits were high. The weather looked favorable. The team was strong. It seemed like one of those rare Everest attempts that just might succeed without tragedy. On October 2nd, 1979, Hannelore reached the summit. Victory was hers. Photographs were taken, smiles flashed despite the exhaustion, and for a moment, the dream was reality. She had done it, stood on top of the world. But on Everest, the summit is never the finish line. It is the halfway mark at best. Every step upward must eventually be retraced on the way down, and that descent is where the mountain claims most of its victims. As Hannelore began the long journey downward, exhaustion hit her like a storm. Above 26,000 feet in the thin slice of atmosphere known as the death zone, the body begins to deteriorate. Oxygen is scarce. Muscles refuse to obey. The brain falters, slipping toward hallucination and confusion. Each step down should have carried her closer to safety, but instead, each step grew heavier, slower, more desperate. Then came the fatal mistake. Just below the south summit, Hannelore sat down. Maybe she told herself it would only be for a minute, just long enough to catch her breath. But in the death zone, sitting is surrender. The cold creeps in, muscles shut down, the mind drifts, and the will to move dissolves. What feels like rest is the beginning of the end. Hannelore never stood up again. She died there, sitting in the snow, backpack still strapped to her shoulders, eyes wide open as though she was still watching the trail. For years afterward, climbers ascending and descending that route would pass her body. Her long hair would lift and whip in the wind, creating the chilling illusion that she was alive. From a distance, climbers would think they were approaching someone in need of help, only to be confronted with the frozen reality. She became a landmark. Directions were given by her presence. Turn left at the German woman, they would say. For many, the sight of her was nightmare fuel, a grim reminder that rest on Everest can be permanent. Attempts were made to recover her body, but Everest punishes even those who try to undo its horrors. A Nepalese police officer died in the process, and eventually, all efforts were abandoned. The mountain decided she would stay. Hannelore became the first woman to die on Everest's summit route. Her frozen figure served as a warning, a lesson carved in ice. The summit is not the goal. Survival is. Her story still whispers the truth. Climbers sometimes forget. Everest doesn't care about triumph. It only waits for mistakes. Shreya Shah Chlorfine, the Canadian dreamer. Fast forward to 2012, and Everest had changed almost beyond recognition. The rugged wilderness that killed Hannelore was now a booming industry. Climbing permits sold like tickets, crowded routes snaked up the slopes, oxygen bottles littered the trails. Everest was no longer just a mountaineer's challenge. It had become a business, and in that business, money could buy you a chance to stand on the summit, regardless of skill or preparation. Shreya Shah Chlorfine, a Canadian woman originally from Nepal, was one of those dreamers who saw Everest not just as a mountain, but as the ultimate goal. She wasn't a seasoned mountaineer. She didn't have decades of training, but she had determination, ambition, and enough money to pay for a guided expedition. Instead of choosing a high-end, safety-focused guiding service, Shreya went with a cheaper option. Corners were cut, experience was ignored, and the confidence that determination would be enough filled the gaps where training should have been. On May 19, 2012, Shreya stood on the roof of the world. She had reached the summit of Everest, fulfilling the dream of a lifetime. Wrapped in a Canadian flag, she posed for photographs, smiling against the sky. It should have been a moment of glory, But behind the celebration lurked danger. That day, over 200 climbers pushed for the summit. The result was a logjam in the death zone. Narrow ridges became traffic jams. Delays stretched on for hours. Time bled away, and oxygen supplies dwindled. For Shreya, those delays were fatal. She had already been in the death zone for more than 20 hours. Her body was shutting down. On the descent, she collapsed just 250 meters from Camp 4, the safety of shelter painfully close. Other climbers passed her, too exhausted themselves to help. Guides were overwhelmed, oxygen was nearly gone, and there was no way to carry her down. She died on the ridge, her dream fulfilled, but her life ended. Her body, draped in the Canadian flag she had carried to the summit, remained on the mountain, a stark symbol of how far the Everest dream had fallen. Shreya's death wasn't just a tragedy for her family, it was a spotlight on Everest's broken system. The guiding company she chose had a reputation for cutting corners. The overcrowding that season was widely criticized. News outlets called Everest a circus, a deadly tourist trap. Her story made the world ask, is Everest about mountaineering anymore, or has it become a reckless business where profit outweighs safety? Her story proved a bitter truth. Money can buy the chance to stand on the summit, but it cannot buy survival. Yasuko Namba, the experienced veteran. The three most horrible fates of women on Everest, mountaineering disasters. While Shreya's tragedy highlighted the dangers of inexperience, Yasuko Namba's death revealed something even harsher. Sometimes even experience isn't enough. In 1996, long before Everest's boom of Instagram climbers and commercial chaos, Yasuko Namba was chasing a dream of her own. At 47 years old, quiet and determined, she had set her sights on the legendary 7 Summits Challenge. She had already conquered 6 of the world's highest peaks on each continent. Everest was her final mountain, the last piece of the puzzle. That spring, she joined Rob Hall's respected expedition team. Hall was one of the most renowned guides of the era, and his expeditions were considered among the safest. Yasuko was no amateur. She was disciplined, experienced, and prepared. On May 10, 1996, Yasuko became the oldest woman at the time to summit Mount Everest. Her dream was complete, but on Everest, dreams often dissolve into nightmares before climbers make it back down. That same day, one of the deadliest storms in Everest's history tore across the slopes. Winds screamed across the ridges, temperatures plunged, visibility dropped to nothing. Climbers descending from the summit were caught in chaos, scattered and disoriented. Yasuko, already exhausted, was broken by the storm. Near Camp 4, just meters from shelter, she collapsed. Her body was frostbitten, her strength gone. Other climbers were also stranded nearby, including Beck Weathers, who miraculously later staggered back from the brink of death. But for Yasuko, there would be no return. Rescuers tried to help, but were forced to leave her behind. The storm was too fierce, the risk too high. Even in her final moments, Yasuko's resolve was remembered. Climbers later said she never panicked, never screamed, and never fought against the impossible odds. She endured the storm with the same quiet determination that had carried her across 6 continents. If this story gripped you and opened your eyes to the chilling truths of Everest, Mount Everest doesn't care who you are. It doesn't care about your dreams, your goals, your legacy, or the promises you've made. Everest is indifferent, a 29,000-foot giant that has stood for millions of years, silently watching humans test their limits, and in many tragic cases, pay the ultimate price. Every year, hopeful climbers arrive at its base. their eyes fixed on the summit, their minds filled with ambition, and their bodies, some of them, completely unprepared for what lies ahead. In 2023, that silent indifference turned deadly for 17 climbers. 9 of those deaths occurred in May alone. 2 of those climbers, just days apart, died chasing the same dream. Different lives, different backgrounds, and yet both were caught in a growing storm, not of weather but of inexperience, commercialization, and misjudged ambition. Suzanne was a 59-year-old teacher from India. She wasn't a seasoned climber, not by any stretch. In fact, she'd only hiked to Everest Base Camp once the year before. That's it. No summits, no high-altitude climbs, no prior experience in the punishing terrain of extreme mountains. Yet she had a goal, one that she repeated often. She wanted to be the first Asian woman with a pacemaker to reach the top of the world. She carried that dream in her heart like a torch, even when the wind and cold tried to snuff it out. For her, Everest wasn't just a mountain. It was a symbol of defiance, a statement that even with health setbacks and age against her, she could still achieve something extraordinary. Friends back home knew her as soft-spoken but incredibly determined. She often spoke of the Himalayas like they were calling her, like this was something she had to do. But determination alone can't rewrite the laws of altitude. And what happened to her on Everest was as tragic as it was preventable. She had no climbing mentors, no prior expeditions to gradually test her limits. Her preparation was more emotional than physical, rooted in belief rather than built on experience. When she arrived at base camp, she was hopeful, smiling in photos, bundled up in gear that looked brand new. But underneath it all, the mountain could already sense the imbalance. Her team members noticed she often needed to rest after short distances. The cold cut through her layers faster than most. Her breathing was heavier, even on level terrain. These weren't just red flags, they were sirens. Her first acclimatization hike took nearly 5 hours to reach a point that should have taken a fit climber 20 minutes. And yet, when she returned, she told others she was adjusting well. The Sherpas weren't convinced. She refused to see her struggle as a warning sign. Instead, she viewed it as a hurdle to push through. But Everest doesn't reward bravery for its own sake. It demands respect and punishes those who show up unprepared. In her second attempt up the same slope, her time worsened. 6 hours in, and she was visibly exhausted, her pace slower than a crawl. But she kept going. Third attempt, 12 hours, a complete red flag. That wasn't perseverance, that was the mountain slowly consuming her. Still, she smiled in the group photos. Still, she posted messages of hope. She didn't tell her family how badly her body was reacting. Perhaps she didn't want to worry them. Or maybe, deep down, she couldn't admit it to herself. Her Sherpa tried to intervene, even telling her outright that she would not survive if she attempted the summit. But her mind was made up. She believed her dream could override biology. She believed sheer will could overcome altitude sickness. At one point, she had difficulty swallowing food. Her throat was sore, her energy dwindling. And even then, she pressed forward. Everest didn't scare her, but maybe it should have. The fever began to set in just days before her final attempt. Her cold worsened. Her voice grew hoarse. Still, she told people she was going to try one more time. What she didn't realize was that Everest had already made its decision. The mountain doesn't negotiate. It doesn't adjust to your pace. If you fall behind, it leaves you behind. Her expedition was arranged through a commercial guiding company. These companies have become increasingly common in recent years, offering Everest summits like their adventure holiday packages. Some of them promise that prior mountaineering experience isn't really necessary. Just show up, follow the Sherpas, and trust the process. For a price, of course. Suzanne's journey began in early May 2023. She traveled to Nepal, joined the glacier horde. She had to be forcibly removed from the mountain. By that point, she was in such a fragile state that she was flown directly to Lukla, where she was treated through the night. She didn't make it. By 5 a.m. on May 18th, Suzanne was gone. Her dream had cost her everything. But the tragedy doesn't end there. Just one day later, another climber, 55-year-old Malaysian police officer A.G. Iskandar bin Ampuan Yaqub, also died on the mountain. And while his path was different, the underlying issues were hauntingly familiar. Iskandar, known among his friends as Jacob, lived an active life. He had 6 children, worked in law enforcement, and loved adventure sports. He'd been scuba diving, parachuting, you name it. But Everest? Everest is a different beast. Jacob had attempted Everest before and failed to reach the summit. In 2023, he returned, this time with the Nepali Pioneer Adventures team. He was enthusiastic, motivated, and ready to prove something. To himself, maybe to others. His fitness level was better than average, but his mountaineering experience was still limited. The first few weeks at base camp and on acclimatization climbs went reasonably well. The Sherpas didn't raise major concerns, but that can be deceiving. You can look fine at lower altitudes, and then everything can change above 8,000 meters. The death zone, where oxygen levels drop so low that the human body literally starts dying. On May 18th, the day after Suzanne's death, Jacob and his team reached Camp 4, just under 8,000 meters. The area was littered with empty oxygen bottles, trash, and a haunting silence that only Everest can provide. The next morning, the team set out for the summit. It was supposed to be the final push. Conditions were stable. The sky was clear. For many climbers, this is the moment everything has been building toward. But as they climbed higher, something started going wrong with Jacob. He began to slow down significantly. He needed more breaks. His breathing was heavier, and soon he became disoriented. It didn't take long for the team to realize he was experiencing severe altitude sickness. At over 8,000 meters, even the most basic tasks become monumental challenges. Every movement feels like lifting weights underwater. And if your body isn't adjusting properly, things spiral quickly. The Sherpas tried to act fast. They organized a descent and began moving Jacob down toward Camp 4. Time was against them. Every step felt like a countdown. He was checked regularly, encouraged to keep going, but somewhere along that descent, he became unresponsive. Jacob never made it back to camp. He died on the slopes of Everest, just hours after standing at the edge of the summit. 2 climbers just days apart, different people, different paths, same tragic ending. And this is the real nightmare of Everest today. It's not just the avalanches, the storms, or the death zone. It's the commercialization, the false promises, the idea that Everest is somehow achievable with enough money, even if the experience isn't there. It's the long lines of climbers queuing on icy ridges, standing still in -20 temperatures, burning through oxygen and time. The mountain has become a brand, a status symbol, a checkbox for thrill seekers and dreamers alike. But Everest doesn't care. It doesn't forgive mistakes. It doesn't wait for the unprepared. In 2023, a record number of climbing permits were issued. Dozens of expedition teams flooded the mountain. Base camp became crowded, the upper routes clogged with traffic jams of climbers trying to push higher. And every year, more stories like Suzanne's and Jacob's come out. Some reported, some quietly forgotten in the white silence of the Himalayas. There's no doubt that climbing Everest is a monumental achievement. It requires courage, resilience, and years of preparation. But for those who ignore the warnings, who bypass the experience with cash and determination alone, the mountain often has one brutal way of reminding them who's in charge. Climbers like Suzanne and Jacob deserved better guidance, better systems, better regulation. Their stories serve as a reminder that dreams alone aren't enough, not on Everest. And if change doesn't happen, if the standards continue to fall, if permits keep getting handed out without question, if companies keep selling the summit like it's a vacation package, then this cycle will only repeat. More headlines, more grieving families, more ending on the highest point on Earth, the summit of Mount Everest. But winter on Everest is not just cold. It's cruel, deadly, and almost impossible. Out of over 12,000 successful summits, only 15 have happened in the brutal heart of winter. That's right, just 15. The rest, beaten down by temperatures colder than Antarctica, battered by hurricane-force winds, and in some tragic cases, never seen again. In this video, the harsh truth about Everest in winter is about to unfold. The ones who tried, the ones who made it, and the ones who didn't come back. A world of ice and isolation. Everest in winter is like an entirely different planet. The snow-covered peak doesn't just tower above everything. It isolates itself in silence. Few climbers even dare to approach it. While base camp can see temperatures as low as -22 degrees Celsius, the summit plunges to an unimaginable -60 degrees Celsius. The cold isn't just cold, it's a force. It saps energy, stops muscles, and invites frostbite within minutes. But cold is only half the story. Winter winds on Everest regularly exceed 140 kilometers per hour, stronger than most hurricanes. The mountain sits directly in the path of the jet stream, a high-speed wind current that tears through climbers and gear alike. Tents rip, balance is lost. The wind doesn't just threaten, it decides. And the air? It's thinner in winter. Climbing becomes a slow-motion crawl. Every step burns more energy. The brain starts slipping, judgment weakens, and above 8,000 meters, that so-called death zone feels even deadlier. Why climb in winter at all? Despite all the danger, there are those who still try. Why? Winter offers something that spring and autumn don't: solitude. There's a haunting, silent beauty to Everest in these months. Frozen rivers, snow-blanketed valleys, skies so crisp you can see for miles. The trails are quiet, the usual tourist buzz is gone, and even costs are lower. Fewer trekkers mean cheaper permits, cheaper flights, and discounted stays. But of course, those savings don't make the climb any easier. Getting to base camp alone in winter is already a test. Flights to Lukla, the gateway to the Khumbu region, are often canceled due to bad weather. The 70-kilometer trek to base camp becomes even tougher. Deep snow, icy trails, and bone-chilling nights where temperatures drop below freezing. Even lodging becomes limited. The bustling tea houses of spring shut down. Climbers are left with basic guest houses or cold tents. No heating, no comfort, just noodles and butter tea to stay warm. Packing for a frozen hell. Winter Everest expeditions are a whole new level of preparation. This isn't just about warm clothes, it's about extreme gear, triple insulated boots, heavy downfill suits, glacier-ready gloves. Sun protection becomes even more important as UV rays bounce off the snow, intensifying exposure. Lip balm and high SPF sunscreen become as essential as oxygen. Even with all this, climbers still risk frostbite within minutes. The early years. Impossible was the rule. Before the 1980s, no one dared to climb Everest in the coldest months. Between 1950 and 1964, all of the world's 8,000-meter peaks were climbed for the first time. but none of them in winter. The dangers felt too extreme. The technology wasn't there. The weather was simply uncooperative. That perception began to shift thanks to a determined group of climbers from Poland. These were mountaineers who had grown up in harsh environments and trained in cold conditions. They didn't just chase summits, they chased winter summits. Polish grit, the first real attempt. In 1973, Polish climbers Andrzej Zawada and Tadeusz Piotrowski successfully summited Noshak, a 7,492-meter peak in the Hindu Kush. It was a huge moment. They had done it in winter and they had done it at extreme altitude. This lit the fuse. The following year, Zawada led a winter attempt on Lhotse, Everest's neighbor. On Christmas Day, he and his partner reached 8,250 meters, but a violent storm forced them to turn back. It was a close call, but they had gathered priceless knowledge. The winds, the snowpack, the freezing patterns. They were getting ready for the big one, the historic climb, February 17th, 1980. It took years for Zawada and his team to secure permission for a winter Everest attempt. Winter climbs were considered too dangerous, but finally, in November 1979, the permit was approved. The goal was set: conquer Everest in the heart of winter. The team was massive: 20 Polish climbers, 6 high-altitude porters, and 1 experienced Sherpa, Pemba Norbu. They arrived at base camp on January 5th, 1980, and the mountain immediately showed its teeth. Winds from the north tore through the camp. Temperatures stayed between -25 degrees Celsius and -45 degrees Celsius. Tents were constantly ripped apart. Climbing was slow and exhausting, with progress measured in meters. Even setting up lower camps took immense effort. The team had to melt ice for drinking water. Illness and fatigue set in early. By February, Camp 3 was in shambles. Camp 4, set at 7,960 meters, took days to establish. Each attempt to push forward was met with howling winds, reaching 200 kilometers per hour. The team had to keep retreating. Then the wind stopped, but heavy snow began to fall. Time was running out. The Nepalese government issued a deadline: end the climb by February 15th. Luckily, Polish diplomats negotiated a 2-day extension. On February 16th, the skies cleared. This was it, the final window. 2 climbers, Leszek Cici and Krzysztof Wieliki, made the push. On February 17th at 2:30 p.m., they stood on the summit, the first humans to ever conquer Everest in winter. They planted the Polish and Nepalese flags and stayed at the top for 40 minutes, enduring cold that felt otherworldly. The descent was just as treacherous, but by the time they reached lower camps, the mission was complete. History had been made. The controversy that followed, not everyone celebrated right away. Reinhold Messner, a mountaineering legend, criticized the Polish climb. According to new definitions from Nepalese officials, winter officially started December 1st and ended January 31st. Since the Polish climbers summited on February 17th, Messner claimed it didn't count as a true winter ascent. The debate dragged on for 2 years, but eventually the Nepalese government issued a certificate confirming the Polish team had achieved the first winter ascent. Even Elizabeth Hawley, a respected chronicler of Himalayan climbs, backed their success. Other attempts, other fates. The Polish success opened the gates, just barely. In 1982, Japanese climber Yasuo Kato reached the summit via the normal route. It was a solo effort. Sadly, he didn't make it back. He died during his descent. The following year, a Japanese Nepali team summited in winter. They survived. In 1987, South Korean climber Young-ho Hyo and Angrita Sherpa reached the top. Angrita became the first and only person to summit Everest in winter without bottled oxygen, a feat so astonishing it has never been repeated. More teams tried in the early 1990s. The last successful winter ascent happened in 1993, when a Japanese team climbed Everest via the extremely difficult southwest face. Since then, nothing. Just 15 total winter summits in Everest's entire history. The ones who didn't make it Over 29 expeditions have tried and failed to summit Everest in winter. The reasons are many: storms, frostbite, lack of oxygen, and sheer exhaustion. Some ran out of time. Others ran out of strength. 7 climbers have died trying, including some of the most experienced mountaineers in the world. Yasuo Kato, South Korean climbers, unnamed Sherpas. Their stories serve as sobering reminders of what Everest demands in winter. The route matters too. Most climbers take the standard South Col, Southeast Ridge route. It's shorter, but in winter, even that's a nightmare. Others have tried the North Col from Tibet. It's longer, colder, and more isolated, but has fewer technical challenges. Then there are the daredevils, climbers who take on the southwest face or the treacherous Hornbein Couloir on the north face. These routes are rarely attempted and almost never in winter. Each path is its own monster, and winter makes every meter feel like a mile. Modern-day maverick, Jost Kobusch. One name has recently reignited interest in winter Everest: Jost Kobusch. This German climber is attempting something no one has done before: climb Everest solo in winter, without bottled oxygen, and using one of the most difficult paths, the Low-La West Ridge route. This route has a dark history. First tried in winter 1980 to 81 by a British team, they turned back at 7,300 meters. In the 80s, French, Italian, Belgian, and South Korean teams attempted the same path, only to be shut down by fierce winds and illnesses. Kobusch's first serious attempt came in winter, 2019 to 2020. He reached 7,366 meters before weather forced him back. 2 years later, another attempt ended at 6,450 meters. But in 2023 to 2024, he pushed harder than ever, reaching 7,537 meters, just 1,300 vertical meters from the top. But his body wasn't acclimatized enough. Spending the night at that altitude could have been fatal. He chose to descend, alone, in worsening winds. His approach is different. Alpine style, no Sherpas, no preset camps. He carries everything himself. That makes him lighter, faster, but far more vulnerable. Finding a place to sleep is a battle in itself. Wind, steep slopes, no flat ground, no margin for error. What makes Kobusch's mission even more remarkable is the level of patience he brings to the process. He isn't chasing a quick headline. He's methodically testing what the body can endure at high altitude, in the worst possible conditions. He studies wind patterns, monitors snowfall data, and refines his equipment strategy with each return. Unlike traditional Everest expeditions with large support teams, Kobusch is rewriting the playbook by embracing minimalism. He's also drawing attention from the wider mountaineering world, many of whom view his efforts as a masterclass in long-term preparation. And while he hasn't reached the top yet, each attempt is expanding what's known about Everest's West Ridge in winter. But Kobusch isn't done. He treats Everest like a long-term project, one step closer each year. His recent attempt is the closest anyone has ever come to summiting Everest in winter using the Low-La route. And if anyone can do it, it might just be him. Everest in winter is still one of the hardest challenges in mountaineering. Only 5 expeditions have ever succeeded. 15 total summits, 1 without oxygen, over 29 failed attempts, 7 deaths. It's not just a mountain, it's a test of everything: gear, endurance, preparation, and the will to survive. But for those few who stand at the top, when the wind dies down and the world falls silent, it's not just a summit, it's history. If this story gave chills, not just from the cold, but from the courage, hit that like button and subscribe for more epic stories from the edge of the world. Got a favorite Everest moment or a climber you admire? Drop it in the comments.